Hello, thank you for joining my channel. This is Tim Young, and I'm going to try to go over some basic organization stuff, how I organize my files in my computer for Photoshop and Lightroom and Capture One. This is just a quick tutorial for people that might be just getting started. And before learning how to edit photos, I think it'd be a good idea to just know how to organize your files on your hard drive. And I'm going to show you basically what I do. I'm going to open up Photoshop first and just go over my preferences. And if you're wondering what type of equipment I think I have an old 2013 MacBook Pro Retina display, which is actually closed right now because I'm looking at a Thunderbolt monitor, and I have another monitor, the LG, some IPS LED monitor. That's kind of like my secondary monitor off to my right, but I'm basically looking at my main monitor is a Thunderbolt display, and they're about my two main monitors are about the same size. So as far as how much power you need out of a PC or a laptop, I think you probably would need at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM on my laptop now, and on my tower that I don't use anymore, I actually bumped it up to 24 gigabytes of RAM one time and paid the extra money, and I didn't see any improvement whatsoever. So I have no problems using a laptop at 16 gigabytes of RAM, and my computer runs pretty smooth. I also have a PCI 1 terabyte hard drive in my laptop, which is like really, really fast. So if you have one of the hard drives that spin, it's going to be a lot slower. So I think if you want your editing to go really smooth, you should have some type of SSD hard drive in your either your tower or laptop. And the reason why I went with a laptop is because I could just grab it and go. If I have to teach somewhere or if I'm on vacation, I could just grab that laptop with me. I don't like having more than one computer with my Photoshop and Lightroom and all my plugins. It's just a lot easier for me to have everything in one place, because if you have like 2 or 3 places where you edit, you're going to have to update all that and possibly update all your plugins and install all your plugins, and it's just I've done that going back and forth, and if you do that, you can have one computer favorite over the other, and switching files back and forth, and it's just a pain in the neck. So for me, I just said I'm going to just go with a laptop. I know Apple just announced their new MacBook Pro for 2016, coming out in 2017. The specs, as far as the hardware is concerned, I didn't see a big improvement. So I'm going to just stick with my current MacBook Pro. It gets the job done. I would like to have seen more RAM and more, power behind the video card and stuff. But technically I really don't need it. My MacBook Pro is pretty fast as it is. It is dual boot. I've got Windows 10 on it, so if you kind of look at my software, it looks like PC software. It is. So I've got the 1 terabyte hard drive split, so 500 gigabytes is Mac, and then 500 gigabytes is the Windows. So that's my hardware. I do have a Wacom tablet that I use. I'm not completely dependent upon it. I kind of still use a mouse sometimes, but if I'm doing any work as far as masking or skin retouching, it's a lot easier with the Wacom tablet. You won't go back to using a mouse. And then I have a wireless keyboard also. Since like I said, my laptop is actually closed right now. I'm not even using the keyboard on that. Okay, so let's dive into the preferences of Photoshop real quick, see what I have. As far as my color settings, I have mine set to Pro Photo RGB, which is the same color space as Lightroom is, so it's just a lot easier when you have your photos go from Lightroom into Photoshop to have the same color space. It's also the largest color space. The other two sometimes people use are the Adobe RGB, which is a smaller color space than Pro Photo, and the least color space is sRGB right here. Now, all JPEGs are sRGB, and that's what you see on the internet, but I wouldn't recommend actually editing in the sRGB color space. So if you're throwing in JPEG photos into your Photoshop and you see like a color shift or something, it's probably because either you don't have your workspace set to RGB, or you haven't converted your JPEG file into a workspace appropriate for the ProPhoto or the Adobe RGB. So I would recommend ProPhoto RGB, and I think most people would recommend that as well. And I have these three over here checked, so every time you throw in a photo that doesn't match your current color space, it'll ask you what you want to do. Do you want to change the file itself to match your workspace, or do you want to change your workspace? So that way you won't have that color shift. And if you do have a color shift, you just close out the file and just reload it again and choose one of those options that might pop up. So the main thing is have your workspace ProPhoto RGB, and I think everything else is pretty much default. Let's see what else we have. Go edit, and then we'll go to preferences, and we'll just go down these real quick. I'll just go to general. I think it pretty much just loads everything up. Let's see what we got here. This looks all standard for me. I don't think I did anything here. I liked having this background as a neutral gray. I wouldn't recommend having it all white or all black, just because your eyes will get accustomed to it and your photos might appear too dark or too light depending upon what your background color is. And having a nice neutral gray background, you'll see colors a little bit better. So either this light gray or maybe a dark gray. That's too dark for me. I like this color right here, so I'd recommend that. And then let's see what else we have. Everything else looks about the same for default settings. Workspace, that looks all default to me. I like to zoom with the scroll wheel if you have a mouse. That's just something I like to do. History log. Oh, let me go back up to tools again. Nope, I don't see anything there. History log, nothing there. File handling. Automatically save recovery information 1 hour. I think that's default. Everything here looks default to me. Recent file list contains 20 files. You could change that if you want, but I don't really use that too much. JPEG export quality 100. That's pretty standard for me. Color space, and this is again if you're exporting to JPEG, you want to convert that to sRGB for the internet. If you don't convert to sRGB and it's just RGB, you might get some color shifts when you see your photo on the internet. So use that sRGB. You could adjust the RAM, how much RAM you want Photoshop to use, and I had mine cranked up there pretty high. If you have a graphics processor, I would recommend checking this. Unless there's something wrong with it, it'll just your computer will go a little faster. And they have advanced settings here, and these are my advanced settings. I have all these checked. I'm using I think an NVIDIA card in this MacBook Pro. The new one, I think they went with AMD or something, but I like NVIDIA. History states, I got mine cranked up to 100, but you know that's kind of weird. You can bring it down to 20 or whatever. But sometimes I like to go back to my history a lot, and if I've got the RAM, you know, what the heck. So I wonder if I could put that in manually. Let me just back that up. 100. Okay. And that's my settings there. My scratch disk. I do have one. It's right there. It's probably the other side of my terabyte. If you have a scratch disk, especially if it's an SSD, it'll make Photoshop go a lot faster. So that's that. Cursors, I think that's pretty much standard. And I'm pretty sure everything else here is going to be standard too. Okay, yeah. So the big thing is just make sure you have your color space. I'll just go over that one more time real quick. Color settings, ProPhoto RGB. That's what you want. And I did want to just go over one other thing real quick. With this masking tool, if you double click it, I like to have mine click to selected areas. I think default is set to masked areas. I don't know. If I like to select something with the tool, I want it to be set to selected areas. So I actually double click here to pull this up and click selected areas. And I think that's what most people do actually also. Otherwise you have to invert it, but it's just a lot easier having it selected there. So those are my preferences for Photoshop. Let me just close that out. And I usually keep my tools on another monitor, so this is what you might see on my other monitor, which if you have two monitors, just move your tools over to another monitor and then you have all this space to work with. So next we're going to go into my Lightroom setup. Loading up Lightroom right now. Okay, so first we are going to create a new catalog. And let me just get that ready real quick. I'm going to go to, let me just delete something real quick. Okay, so we're going to go File. Right now, when you Lightroom loads, it's going to probably either create a new catalog or might bring up an old catalog or a default catalog, but I'm going to have you create a new catalog. And we're going to go to Pictures, and we're going to create a new folder, and we're just going to call this blank or empty Lightroom. I'm going to open that up, and we're going to put our catalog in here. So we'll just call this blank Lightroom, and then we're going to call that create. It's going to ask us every time this pops up, if you want to back up a catalog, I always say yes. And it literally takes like 2 seconds. So that closes out whatever you had up open earlier, and it's going to load the new catalog you just created. Okay, and if you go to that folder, here's my pictures folder, and here is the blank Lightroom we just created right there. So I'll click on that, and then in here is going to be our Lightroom catalog that we just created. So I'm going to just move this over off to the side, and we're going to look at our preferences in this Lightroom catalog folder. Preferences. Okay. This will ask you, when you start up Lightroom for the first time, do you want it to load a certain catalog or the last one that was loaded? I just like to have it load up a blank catalog, because if the last one I loaded was a huge job, I don't want to waste time looking at that. So I just create that blank Lightroom catalog, and I'll just have it load that. I uncheck the show import dialog when a memory card is detected. But sometimes if I'm putting a memory card in, I don't want Lightroom to load, so I uncheck that. And I think a lot of this stuff looks pretty default or standard. Presets, I don't see anything there. External editing, I like to edit in PSDs, but you could also do this in TIFF. You might want to do TIFF if you're using other programs such as like Capture One that can't read Photoshop files. Here's your color space, which is standard is ProPhoto RGB. So you want to make sure it's in ProPhoto, so when it goes into Photoshop, it matches that same color space. And I think that's all that I want to show you there. File handling, that looks about standard to me. Interface, I don't think I changed anything there. Performance, you can use a graphic processor if you want, and it pulls up your video card. Now, recently I've had problems, like my Lightroom was actually kind of slow, so I unchecked this, and it was fine. I don't use Lightroom a lot anymore, or if I do it, I just use very minor adjustments. My video card might be going, but I never had that problem before, and so like I had said, I have like a 3-year-old laptop, so it might be kind of going on the fritz. So for me, I just unchecked it. But if you can check this and without any problems, then do that. But I'm going to leave mine unchecked. But in your case, you might want to check that. You probably should check it. But again, if you have problems, you might want to uncheck that. Maybe my computer can't handle it anymore. that seems standard, and that seems standard. Now I'm going to go back to General and click this Go to Catalog Settings. And we're going to go back to General, back up Catalog. I would say every time Lightroom exits. File handling, that looks standard, and metadata. Okay, this is one I would really strongly recommend. Where it says automatically write changes to XMP, I would say yes. So every time you make an edit in Lightroom on a RAW file or a JPEG or any file, it's going to create an additional XMP file to go along with that. So why do I do that now when I didn't years ago? Because I've had Lightroom catalog files get corrupted. So if you already have all your changes saved in a separate file next to your raw file or something, you could just import all the photos and changes, and then you're good to go. You don't have to re-edit all those photos. And believe me, you will have corrupt data in the future, especially like if it's just sitting on a hard drive for years later. Good luck trying to open that. So I would recommend copying, checking this box right here. And I think that's about it. So that's a really big one for me, is this right here. So I'm going to close this out real quick. It's going to ask me if I want to back it up. And I say, yeah, sure, back up. Okay, I'm going to go back over to my blank Lightroom catalog. I'm going to actually create some new folders here that will set us up for importing future photo shoot projects and stuff. So we already have our catalog for Lightroom here. We are going to need to create another folder called raw photos. Another folder called let's just say edits, like PS, and then we'll do the other folder called, like JPEGs. Could be good for like web size use or something. Actually, I created a new one recently. This is something that you don't need to do, but this is what I do. I say CO for Capture One. But sometimes if I have a shoot, I will import them in Capture One, and this will be really similar to the Lightroom catalog, except I'll have a catalog for Capture One. But you don't need to include that if you don't have Capture One. But this is kind of like my workflow. So this is going to be your template. That's why I made it like an exclamation point at the top. This is what I really use right here, but this is for teaching purposes. So every time I'm about ready to import a bunch of photos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this right here, copy it, and I'm going to paste it again. Okay. I'm going to rename it whatever my shoot is. So I did a shoot with my wife. We just went to the park and took some photos. It really wasn't like a professional shoot or anything. We were just having some fun. But we took that on 2016-11/01. So I'll put a date on it, and then maybe a little description, wife at park. And then these right here are empty folders, but I do want to go to the Lightroom folder and then click here and rename that. Pretty much the same thing. You could put the date in there if you want, but I'm going to just write wife at park. Now we're all set to import our photos. And we're going to put them in here, the raw photos. If you don't shoot raw, then just label it whatever, but you could maybe label like master photos or something like that. So when you got your SD card, your memory card from your camera, I wouldn't import those photos using your camera with like a USB cord. No, I would just add too much wear and tear on the camera, in my opinion, and probably cause some problems. Take the memory card out and put it in like a memory card reader, or if your laptop, in my case, has a SD reader, I would just stick it in there, which I just did. And here's some photos from that shoot. I've got 37 items at almost 3 gigabytes. What I'm going to do is copy, select them, copy, I'm going to paste them in this raw photos folder. Yeah, just put details. Hopefully that won't take too long. I took a lot more photos, but I just narrowed it down to a few photos, 37, so we can speed up the process a little bit. And if you took a lot of photos, this might be a process that you kind of just import your photos and go get something to eat or something. If it's because when I first took these photos, I think I took almost 30 gigabytes of photos. So we're just about done here. Good. Now we're going to go to the Lightroom catalog that we just renamed, and I'm going to double click that to open it up. One thing real quick, this is the card that came from my camera. The reason why I do copy and paste and not like cut and paste is because if there's a problem with the file transfer, I still want these original files on my, I still have them basically, that they're still on the memory card. If this is a really big shoot, a client shoot or something like that, at this point, I would go back to Photos and Wi-Fi Park, this folder right here. I would go ahead and copy that whole thing to a separate hard drive, go get something to eat or drink again, and then when that was done, I would do it again. I would go to another hard drive, separate hard drive. I'm using Seagate's, like I think I'm up to 8 terabytes. Yeah, 8 terabyte drives. So I've got 2 separate external hard drives as backups, because basically anything that's on my laptop I just consider temporary in case there's a power outage or Windows doesn't start or whatever. If your computer doesn't start, it's just temporary. But I do edit all my photos when the files are on the SSD hard drives. I don't like editing my photos if they're on external hard drives. If that makes sense. If I need to go back to something of an old shoot, I'll find that favorite photo or whatever, drag it over to my SSD and start working on it from there, because it just, once you work on SSDs, you're not going to want to go back to the hard drives that like spin. It's just too slow. So technically, if I had this folder on my laptop, and then I had 2 copies on an external hard drive, that's 3 copies, and then the photos are still on my memory card from the camera, that's 4 copies. And if I go on a shoot and format that card on the camera, I'm good, because I at least have 2 external copies on my external hard drives, and even a 3rd on my laptop. So it's good to have redundancy. And if you want to get rid of your photos from the memory card of your camera, just don't delete it from your computer. Do it properly. Once your camera's memory card is in the camera, go ahead and do a format on your camera and have like a fresh system installed. If you don't do that, you're going to probably likely run into problems with corruption. And I'm going to go back to our demonstration with Lightroom. So we've have this folder, Wi-Fi Park, and we've just imported our raw photos, and there they are. We're going to make sure we're in library mode, and I'm just going to drag some folders in here. Okay. I'm going to drag this one, raw photos. I'm going to control click JPEGs and edits. We don't need to really see what's in these 2. And I'm going to just drag and let go. And it's going to ask me, do I want to import these? I'll say sure. You can click build smart previews if you want. I got building previews set to minimal. I'm going to click import. This part right here, it'll be pretty quick. This just takes a long time to get a whole lot of raw files, especially if they're like 40 megabytes a piece from a shoot into your laptop. But once you do this particular way and import the files if they're already on your hard drive. It doesn't take Lightroom very long at all. So here we have our edits, our JPEGs, and our photos. So every time I do a shoot, you'll realize that I create a separate catalog. I don't have a catalog that shows all my shoots. I know people do that, but if that catalog ever gets corrupt, which has happened to me, then it's gone, you know. So I have a separate catalog for every shoot. So if I have another shoot, I'll just go back to this blank Lightroom that we created a moment ago, copy it, rename it whatever date and shoot description I want, and just create a whole new catalog for that. So here are the photos we took at our local park. I've got it right now set to capture time, and I just want to show you real quick how I would not really edit a photo in detail, but how I save those files so you're better organized. I'm looking at these photos. Okay, I'm gonna just pick this one because I can see it needs a little work. These were taken at 1 p.m. in the afternoon on a overcast day with just natural light. I probably should have used an off-camera flash because you still kind of get those raccoon eyes right here because the sun was like way up top. But you know, we're just having some fun. So if I want to do my editing, first thing I do is I'll right-click on the photo I want to edit and create a virtual copy. So if I ever screw up my edit, I still have the original file. And that actually doesn't create two files. It's just a virtual copy. So you're not going to lose any memory on your hard drive. It's just a virtual copy. So here's my virtual copy. I'm going to go over to edit, develop. And obviously, in my opinion, this is a little underexposed. So I'm going to pop it up a little bit. Maybe pop up the shadows. And my white balance seems to be off, so something like that. So here's the before, and here's the after. I will right-click and edit in, open as Smart Object in Photoshop. That takes all the raw information and will throw it into Photoshop. And so I'm going to click here. I'm going to hit F for full screen, and I do want to make an edit just so you can see how I save my Photoshop files real quick, but I don't really know what I want to edit. What I want to do here. Maybe just throw like a filter on it or something. What do I want to do? Gradient map. What do I want to do here? I'm just messing around. So lower the opacity, maybe something like that. Soft light. Okay, so here's before, after, before, after. So a little color toning going on there. And let's say, you know, I like that. So it's time to save it as an edit. So I'll save as, and then I will find my folder we created, and then I'll put it in edits. Now, don't change the file name here. But if you do that, Lightroom won't be able to find it. We'll hit save. Let's see if Lightroom has it. Lightroom, we'll go back to library. Okay. Right now it's showing raw photos, but if we go into edits, there it is right there. See what else we can do. Let's make a JPEG out of this so it's ready for the web. So let's say, okay, looks really good. I want to export this to the web. First thing you're going to do is resize it because files coming from your camera are going to be huge. Mine's over 5,000 pixels wide and almost 8,000 pixels high. For like Facebook, the longest edge I would do is like 2048. I wouldn't go over that. Okay, so it's been resized. I'm not going to do any sharpening right now. That'll be another tutorial. But let's say you're happy with this and you're ready to save it for the web. PC is Alt Control Shift S. This is your save for web right here. Option, you make sure it's JPEG, quality 100. Checkbox next to convert to sRGB. Save. And let's go up to find that White Park photo and put JPEGs here. And then just save it. I wouldn't rename it at this point. And I think we're done with this Photoshop. I'm going to minimize this and bring up Lightroom. And here are our JPEGs, perhaps. Should be in there. I guess maybe it didn't find it. So we'll just right click and synchronize folder. Synchronize. And there it is. I don't know why. Maybe it doesn't automatically do it with the JPEGs. So if you actually did rename the files and Lightroom can't find it anymore, just go to your folders here and right click and do the synchronize folder. It'll research everything and you'll have it there. So the reason why I like this method is it doesn't have your edits and your web size all listed in one folder. That's just crazy. I used to do that, and then I just wouldn't know which ones were my edits, which ones were my Facebook. It's just when you're new, you get organized. It'll be a lot easier. So hopefully this tutorial will put you on the right path, and you'll start editing in no time. Thank you.